It's time once again to focus on your money. It's Wealth Wednesday. Shandy Froese, investment advisor with TD Wealth, is here today to talk about RRSPs. Oh my God, the deadline to contribute is coming up very, very fast. So when it comes to planning, what should people be thinking about when they're starting to think about RRSPs?
Absolutely. So several things to keep in mind. And the first I'd say is the deadline. So we want to make sure we know when that date is. This year it is February 29th.
Okay.
And that is the last day that you can contribute to your registered retirement savings plan, so that contribution can be applied to last year's income, so 2023's income. And so that would therefore lower your income and lower the tax that you owe. The other thing to keep in mind, of course, is your contribution limit. So we want to make sure we know how much we can put in. How do we figure that out? Checking in with CRA. And so we can do that by either checking in online, or you can do that by calling. We do want to keep in mind that these numbers are not real time. And so you may have to do some math and look at what their last contribution that they have on file for you, and look at what you've done throughout the year. We've actually unfortunately seen this with plenty of tax-free savings accounts, where people will look right away in the new year, they'll see that contribution amount and they'll put it in, but not realize that they actually haven't accounted for last year's, and so now they have a steep penalty.
You never want to have to pay a penalty when it comes to RRSPs or any of those sorts of things.
Definitely not.
So TFSAs, RSPs, should you make contributions to one, the other, both? What's the smart money on?
Great question. So really depends on some math again, of course. And so we want to look at, so for an RSP, the idea behind it is that you are putting this money in when you are in a higher tax bracket and taking it out when you're in a lower tax bracket. So for argument's sake, let's say you're in a 40% tax bracket and we're going to put $10,000 in. We would essentially be paying $4,000 less tax this year.
Okay.
And then when we take it out and we're in, let's say, a 25% tax bracket, we're going to owe, instead of $4,000, $2,500 on that same $10,000, and it just had years and years of tax deferred growth. So that's the idea behind an RSP. If we are unfortunately in the same tax bracket now as we are in retirement, then there may not be the same type of benefit for you, and so a tax-free savings may be the right vehicle for you. Always recommend looking at it with your financial planner, because we can then go through and look at what is your projected income in retirement and that cash flow coming through, and see what that tax bracket would be, so we know which right vehicle is.
You know, I had somebody suggest to me that I make a loan to borrow against an RRSP or something along those lines.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Absolutely. So that actually can be a great strategy, and that is essentially borrowing money to put into your RSP so that you can make a bigger RSP contribution this year. Maybe you don't have access to the cash right now, so you borrow it. And so it can be a great thing, but several things you'll want to keep in mind. The first thing is, how quickly can you pay off that loan? Oftentimes banks will have RSP specific loans. They will be shorter term loans that have a shorter term, and so 3 months to 12 months is oftentimes what we see. Sometimes they will have lower interest rates too, so another thing that you want to keep in mind is, what's the interest rate? Am I going to pay a whole bunch and not make as much as in my RSP? And then it may not make much sense. But so those are the things you want to keep in mind. The other thing is your age. So you want to look at how old you are. Or if you're younger, it can make a lot more sense for you to do this. The power of the compounding growth and the opportunity that the RSP provides can be quite significant the longer that money is in there for you. And so being able to maximize your RSP contributions and having that tax deferred growth can be huge, and possibly outweigh that cost of that short-term loan, so that you can get your money working for you quicker. And so, of course, always recommend still having this chat with your certified financial planner, so that they can actually go through, give you that specific advice for you and your unique situation.
Okay, the deadline again is February 29th. It's a leap year, so don't forget February 29th.
Don't forget.
You've given us a lot to think about. Shandy Froese, thanks for coming in.
Thank you so much.
And that's Chat News at noon for today. I'm Dan Reinish. Thank you very much for watching. We'll have all the latest for you coming up at 5.